85,
90.
90, 95.
We're playing for keeps. We're on the market. Stay strong, sir. Sold! Hello and welcome to GPTV on Tuesday the 15th of July. My name's Philip Kingston.
I'm Leon Guzenfitter.
Leon, great to have you on the show. For those of you that watch this show on a regular basis, you'll know that Leon Guzenfitter is our partner and director of our incredible Bentley operation. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Phil. Feel like you've avoided having me on the main GPTV for a while. It's good to get off the bench.
No,
it's a big bench.
I haven't avoided you, but you're a busy guy. I'm a busy guy, and
Yes.
Gary's been away, which gives me an opportunity to get a proper co-anchor.
Yeah, great.
Having said that, off screen, when you made a little jab at me about which was my best side, and I said I don't have a good side, but my worst side is better than your good side, you did come back very quickly with what?
Would you like a step, Phil?
Yes, tell me, how tall are you?
I'm not that tall, but I'm a bit taller than you. I'm about 190, 91 centimetres, about 6'3"-ish in the old scale.
6'3", okay.
Yeah.
So, look, I used to think I was 6'1", but if I'm 6'1", you can't be 6'3".
No.
Ah,
You're definitely not 6'1", Phil.
It's terrible, really. Tell me about your three beautiful children. How old are they now?
Yeah, so I always say at the end of the year, because they all have birthdays in late November and late December, we timed it pretty good for real estate.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
by the end of
Just on that, viewers, it's best to have a child when you're a real estate agent sometime late December
Yes.
or early January. You
Yeah.
almost got there.
Almost. I think one year we got one of the children, we must have mucked up our dates, but Abigail will be 10 on December 23,
Wow.
and Zara will be 8 on November 21,
Yes.
and Blake will be 4 on December 22.
Incredible.
So-
I can't believe that you're about to have a 10-year-old.
Yes.
That is scary as. And tell me, so that the viewers get some sense of your personal life, you're currently living in the most beautiful house that you developed in Caulfield.
Yes.
But it was one of two.
Yes.
And you did this most amazing development. But you're now currently building a house.
I am building a house, and we are currently 14 months into a 12-month build with 3 months to go, which is probably consistent with lots of people.
So I just want to rewind that. That was 14 months into a 12-month build with 3 months to go. So
Yeah.
we'll be 17 months, we think,
Probably.
by the time we
Yeah.
finish a 12-month build.
That's right.
Which is not bad, really.
It's not bad. There's a few customised things in this home, and I've made a point not to rush the guy because
Yes.
you don't want to replace speed with quality.
Yes.
And I think maybe even with a real estate agent who's really trying to sell a house, if it's not working, I think really lynching the agent or me lynching my builder doesn't help the buyer come and pay more and doesn't help my builder finish faster and better. So the fact I do have a nice home that we can live in, and I'm punting the back end of the market, back end of the year might improve the market.
Yes.
Maybe it's meant to be that the build's a bit delayed.
Okay, so if you think about it, you'll be at 17 months, call it 18 months just for rounding this out.
Yeah.
You'll be 18 months, but building a quality home, I reckon, is a 12 to 18 month process.
That's right,
Anyway,
yeah.
so you'll be bringing it on. You'll be bringing it in on time.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that you probably imposed a quicker build on yourself, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And look, certain things get in the way. We had a storm end of last year, which delayed things by pouring the second slab for the floors. The water got under, and look, again, my builder was cautious. He could have let it go, and maybe some water got under the polystyrene, which would have moulded in the future, and some builders will let that go.
Yep.
He didn't let it go. He ripped it all up. That delayed us, and then we got to Christmas, and, things just happen, and suddenly you're a little bit behind.
Tell me, because I've built before, and now this is your second build.
Yeah.
Do you think you're a better real estate agent as a result of this process?
Most definitely. And I think if I was advising the body of how to become a real estate agent to get your license, some of the stuff that you do with the online course is a bit, mundane. they should go onto a building site and understand how a house is built and what is a brick veneer and what is a solid brick and what is a cladding and how does plumbing get through and what does a rough in mean.
Yes.
I think that's, and the lucky thing for me, you probably know that before I was in real estate, one of the reasons I got into real estate is I was in banking, so I learned how lending works, which is important. And then I did a year building a development with my cousin, who's a big developer. So I learned, we built a block of flats in Elwood. So I learned from the slab, from the basement, all the way to the top penthouse, how to build a house.
Yes.
And I think that kind of it kept me in good stead because I can speak to builders and developers about their projects and not be a complete novice about it.
I think that's a really good point. And when I think about my career, similar to yours, other than the fact that I wasn't in banking, I was in farming, and then I worked at the pancake parlour. So
that's very important.
Ultimately, what does that bring to the table for me? I'm not sure, but true story, farming and the pancake parlour, where both Gary and I worked together before we were both sacked together. Anyway,
on the same night? Were you sacked on the same night?
Life's one of those beautiful stories, isn't it, about where all of this scar tissue turns us into who we are today. Speaking of turning us into who we are today, the industry across the weekend was what?
Clearance rate was 67%.
And then at Gary Peer & Associates, we just seemed to do it week in, week out, where we brought it in at
80%.
80%. Now, truthfully, it was 80%, but it wasn't out of a lot of volume. So for us, 20 to 30 auctions every weekend is typical, but July is the quietest month of the year.
Yeah.
And I think you've just come back from Japan on a whirlwind Japanese learning exercise.
Yes.
Tell me 3 key points that you've brought back from Japan. Doesn't have to be specifically real estate related, but what can you tell me?
One thing I can tell you is Japan is a very safe, sophisticated, well-organised country where the people seem to be, clever and gentle and polite and civil.
Yes.
I think the fact you can buy alcohol from a 7-Eleven and we don't see people fighting each other in the street, which I think if you could buy alcohol in Melbourne at a 7-Eleven, there would be some fighting in the street. So there's like a level of trust that this government doesn't have to be like a nanny state, which I think they have to be a little bit in Victoria.
We're going a little bit political here, which is okay. I'm with you.
I thought I'd
roll
take that
on.
away.
Okay, so it's a civil, safe society where you can buy alcohol at the 7-Eleven.
Very cheap. Very cheap.
Key point number 1.
Key point number 2. Even people with a more open palate than me, I have a very limited palate.
Schnitzel and chips is
potato,
really got to be your go-to.
Basically very limited eggs.
Yes.
Even people with a much more broader palate, and we had a good group of, I think at one dinner we had nearly 70 people as part of this.
70 real estate agents.
Agents and partners. Most people were looking for the 7-Eleven afterwards to see if they can find an egg sandwich or some crisps or something like that, because it was not everything had a little fishy aftertaste afterwards. So,
yes, well, sushi and sashimi will give that to you.
Yeah. Another thing from Japan, it's interesting when we stayed in the middle of the business district.
Yes.
The people seem to be very robotic and not happy.
Right.
And it's an observation Jess made, my wife made as well, that people seem to be quite upset and not so helpful and just very almost miserable. And I believe they do work very hard in Japan.
Yep.
But then when we went to one of the other hotels, which was closer to Disneyland, which we went to as part of the end of our trip, and we stayed in a more less businessy but more real Japanese sort of area. The people were so different. The people were pleasant. We asked somebody for directions to get to a certain restaurant that had meat, not fish.
Yes.
And this woman literally took us all the way there.
Yeah.
And then she asked us a few questions through a translator. Her English was limited. And then she came back at the end of our dinner with some gifts for our kids. And then she took Jess's number, and it got a bit borderline.
What's going on?
Yeah. And then Jess would have mentioned to her when we were leaving, and sure enough, about 45 minutes before we were leaving our hotel to go to the airport, this woman rocks up to our hotel, which is down the road from the shopping mall, which we met her at accidentally, with more gifts for us to take home and take photos with us. So, And my understanding is that's really what the Japanese culture is.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I just saw it in the same city of Tokyo.
Two polar opposites.
Two very different parts of Tokyo.
Yes.
But a great country, and I love the warmth, and I'll take hot, stinky, and sticky, sorry, I should say, and sweaty than cold and freezing any day of the week.
Yeah. Okay, well, interesting observations. And obviously the auction system is not alive and well in Japan.
No, in fact, we only did really real estate from other agents in Australia rather than develop.
Okay,
Look at their real estate markets too much.
So, because it was a real estate conference, therefore, obviously there were real estate agents there.
Yes.
There is photos and evidence of you doing some learning and discussing.
Definitely.
Okay, great to know. Good to know that while I stayed in the cold, most of my partners were away in Japan, but lovely story about that woman. That's quite incredible. Certainly imagine in Australia, somebody going to that level of care and concern for a tourist.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Here we are in the middle of July.
Yes.
Tell me, because I can sense it's going to be a busy spring. Spring is obviously going to kick in August, September, October, and then of course we head towards the end of the year with November, December. Any predictions for what it's going to look like in the months ahead?
Yeah, look, I think that little curve of being past the bottom and trending on the way up is going to continue to go on the way up. We're certainly feeling, especially through low volume at the moment, a lot more competitive scenarios. Buyers being a bit more aggressive, putting in offers. I mean, some of the sales we made last week, there were aggressive offers well above the range to stop auctions. So we weren't seeing that 6 months ago. And it was disappointing we didn't get a rate cut a week ago, but I think that another 0.25 or another 2 lots of 0.25 will come, which will help.
Yep.
It can only help. And outside of any other things outside of our control, I do see the back end of the year being a strong end. And I think for buyers, people are still holding off listing because they continue to wait for it to kick, which will make it hard for buyers, because I think people will go, well, I've held off this long, maybe I'll hold off the stock a bit longer, which again will put pressure on competition. So I think if you see something you like and afford, don't necessarily think there's going to be a plethora more coming up. Maybe just go for that. Yes.
Look, I think it's a fantastic time to buy. And of course, the cynics that are watching the show will say, Philip, you always say that. And if I was to go back through 600 episodes of GPTV, it's probably true for the cynics that watch the show. But something just feels like this market is just looking for an excuse to surge forward. And if you think about the fundamentals to this country, whilst the world is a crazy place, interest rates are not high by historical standards. Employment, which to me is the number one thing to look at. If unemployment rises, that's the enemy of property prices. So we've got a stable employment scene. So I think that we're just looking for an excuse. And viewers, here's the thing. When the market does jump, it's that 10 to 15% kick that we see happen virtually overnight. It's almost like you come to work one weekend and there's 20% more people coming through the open for inspections. There's 20% more people bidding at auctions, and almost overnight what we would have sold for $1 million is all of a sudden $1.1 or $1.2 million. So when it does kick, viewers, we can say this, history has shown it kicks very quickly. So let's talk about some of the sales from the weekend, and let's talk about the auctions that are in front of us. So across the weekend, we talk about our 80% clearance rate, which was 4 out of 5 auctions. But we had some really good competition across different styles of property. So I think it's worth dissecting the different styles of property, given what we were talking about, the market poised to go forward. So Leon, let's talk about Ascot Street in Malvern, which went particularly well. Talk us through that.
Yeah, well, Graham had a lot of interest on this property, and as you can see on the screen, is a property that probably needed a bit of love and maybe even a little bit more than just a lick of paint. But he attracted a good crowd with 5 bidders and sold well over reserve. And a great little project to start someone's portfolio or a first home. I'm not sure of the profile of the buyer, but certainly it looks like a little bit of work to be done there, Philip.
Beautiful position though, sold for $305,000. Now, to fix that up, by the time you've retiled the bathroom, redone the kitchen, painted, carpeted, probably some electrical work and some plumbing problem, you could probably put in anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, probably closer to $100,000 by the time you finish. So that was a really great result. Moving to number 49 Kinloch Avenue, Murrumbeena. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that part of Murrumbeena near the Oasis Bakery that's been rezoned to the McKinnon Secondary College zone. Of course, you know, the morning when all those residents woke up and their house value jumped by 15% was a pretty good morning for everybody.
Yep.
And this was a home that made the Ascot apartment look like a palace, because this home actually has no internal vision or photos because it was unlivable and apparently full of junk. So it was pure land value.
Yep.
And again, as I said earlier, developers are coming back into it. A number of developers aggressively trying to position themselves to take it off the market before.
Yes.
And I believe that we were quoting somewhere up to around 1.4 million, ended up having a sort of a competitive pre-auction auction, which ended up selling for $1,660,000.
Really good result. Shout out to Christian de Freck from our Carnegie office who handled that. And also from our Carnegie office, shout out to Graham Callan on Ascot. Moving from Ascot Malvern to Murrumbeena to St Kilda East. I think Bernie Mell and the team had a really good result there.
Yeah, again, another different type of property, a 2-bedroom apartment that was bigger in nature than most other 2-bedders. Also attracted 5 bidders on the day, so that depth of bidding is really important to see.
I think the interesting part about that, we've got a competitive 1-bedroom in Malvern, we've got a competitive block of land in Murrumbeena, we've got a competitive 2-bedroom apartment in St Kilda East. So these are real indicators that the market is moving forward. Now, we've got a very small offering for this weekend as we move towards the end of July into a very busy August. Let's have a look at what we're auctioning on the weekend. So coming up this weekend, only 2 auctions, which is, you know, not even an auctioneer getting their heart rate from, you know, resting a pulse of 60 to 70. So we jump out of the blocks with an apartment in Elwood, 12 at 38 Mitford Street, Elwood, that Matthew Morley and Jeremy Rosens has auction honours on.
Yeah, well, a little 1-bedroom, a good way to get into the market for Elwood. I drove through Elwood on the weekend just because I like to look at properties, and it's just the most magical little suburb, and it's almost like it's the most villagey type of suburb that I think anywhere in the areas we certainly serve. It's got this very villagey feel, and people who love there just swear by Elwood and don't seem to want to leave.
Tiny little suburb underpinned by Ormond Road, Elwood, Glen Huntly Road, Elwood, access to Brighton, access to St Kilda, and of course the incredible Elwood foreshore and Elwood Beach. So we go from Mitford Street, Elwood to North Road, Ormond.
Yes, right up the road from our office, and that little strip around Ormond Station is just getting better and better every year. The old shops are closing, the new shops are opening, they're being refurbed, some cool little bakeries are opening up. And again, on Saturday, because I didn't have a lot of work on, I did a lot of driving. Turned with my kids to take them out of the house so they don't, you know, all fight at the same time.
I get it.
And I drove past Sebi Scrolls, I think it's called.
In North Road,
in North Road.
Spring Road.
That's right, not far from this apartment. And there, I would say conservatively, 80 to 100 people in line, but probably more. And it was windy and cold, and they were lined up like soldiers waiting for their scroll.
Have you tried them?
I have not, Philip.
Okay.
It's not potatoes or meat or my basic diet, but I hear it must be incredible.
So I stopped one day because, you know, I've been driving backwards and forwards past this place forever. And as I'm driving past on my way to an auction, I see the queues short. So I do a U-turn in North Road, park straight out front, and I get a savoury and a sweet. All I can tell you is if you've never experienced one of those, whatever they are incredible. So I get the queue. But the one funny thing about Melbourneites is we love queuing for a bakery. If ever there is a reason to queue in Melbourne, it's either for a coffee or it's for something like a croissant or a coffee scroll or something like that.
The old Baker Blue lines used to be doing. You'd just give it, you'd like, I'm giving up, I'm just going to go to Brumbies or something. It won't be as good, but I'll be home in an hour faster.
It's very true. So that's a very small weekend. Let's have a look at some feature properties that are coming up though.
Yes.
I do want to talk about number 30B Narrawong Road, Caulfield South. I love this property, and you know this property well.
I do know it very well.
Because clients of yours developed this development.
That's correct.
And they are fastidious people. And now we're lucky enough to, I think you sold it to the people that are living there. Yeah. We're now selling it on behalf of the owners as they're moving on. Nikki Janover has got the honours of handling this property. Yeah. Do you remember this property well?
I do remember it well, and some of the people live in the other half, a delightful family that we went to the local school with and similar age to my kids.
Yes.
And so I know the property very well. And I don't know if it's possible that, 5, 6 years down the line, I don't know exactly the year that was built, but I think it's better because I've seen it and I've seen the photos. And look, when it's new, it's lovely and new and it's all fresh. But after a couple of years, the plants start to grow and the property starts developing a bit more character. And just looking at the property now, I think it's every bit as good as new, but with some extra features after it's matured.
So I reckon I'm going to agree with you here totally and say this property is actually better than brand new, because you're right. First of all, the garden's completely established. Secondly, it's got a plunge pool in it, which most town residences don't have.
Very rare.
There's solar panels on the roof. So this is a house that is, producing electricity, lowering your bills, and you don't get that in new properties either. And then on top of it, the people that are living there, and this is a compliment if you're watching, they're fastidious, which means they've looked after the property, they've lived in it lightly. So it's like, sometimes when you can see a second-hand car, but the owner was, out there
like
polishing
if you're buying one of my cars.
Well, I'd buy a second-hand car from you because I know you look after it. That's what these owners have done, and it's absolutely fabulous. Another property.
Can I just say about Narrawong Road, Phil?
Let me do, yep.
Can I say about Narrawong Road? I work a lot with developers in the area, and we know what land costs, and we know what holding costs, and we also know what the new requirements for energy ratings and all that cost. The price that this is going to go for, all the stuff that's now being priced to sell in 12 to 18 months, 30, 40% higher than this. So for something that's every bit as good as new, around that $2 million mark, this is irreplaceable.
You can't replace it. I totally agree with you. So great opportunity there. We've also got another opportunity for something that's completely different, which is Murray Street in Elstonwick.
Yeah, I love this property. I've always got a soft spot for that mid-century single-level solid brick construction, because I know that it's almost impossible to replicate now.
Yes.
But also this property, it's flexible where you can obviously live in it.
Yep.
You can live in it and improve it and sort of modernise it and not, in good taste and not take away all the character.
Yeah. Or you can take away the character if that's your thing, because they're cubic houses and cubic houses can be completely brought into today's architecture if you want, but I take your point.
Yeah, that's true. And look, I've seen some of them develop a second story if you need more space. But this property with a right of lane, with a right of rear lane and a north-facing yard, it could be that someone opens a door at some point in the short term with a bulldozer and builds a single home or develops it or does something. But to have 663 square metres of north-facing land in a good street, in a great street of a part of Elstonwick, this is a great offering.
Walking distance to absolutely everywhere. I agree with you. This is a sensational offering, and you are getting a really good family home for not much more, if at all, over land value. Very smart purchase. Just on that, I'm going to shout out to one of our favourite clients and friends, which is a guy by the name of Robert Rechman, because he was the master and still is the master of taking these 1960s houses and putting on a second story and transforming them from something that was an old 1960s house to what you would be convinced would be a brand new home. And I'm just going to show you one of his, which is the property in Merton on the corner of Hellensley.
Is it Morris?
I think it's either Morris or Hellensley. We'll bring that up shortly.
Morris Street.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, that was a 1960s house. So shout out to Robert Rechman, who is a regular watcher of the show, who I'm actually having lunch with this week. Just happened that all of this comes out in vibrant conversation. Leon, good to have you back.
Thanks,
I know
Phil.
you had a break. Good to have you back. We've got to catch up for lunch sometime in the next week, I
do.
hope. Congratulations on this house that you're building, because I did have a walk through with you recently.
Yeah.
It might be interesting. Did you take a series of photos across
I have.
the journey?
I've got a little bit of a folder.
Yeah.
So we had some plaster last week, which I was very excited about. So
Fantastic. I might, at the end of this journey with you,
Yeah.
do some before and after photographs and maybe have a chat with you in the house, because
Yeah.
I think it will be a lovely story. I think if you're thinking about building a house, there is no question you have got enormous skills around this, and we would welcome, by the way, anybody building. Before you commit to your final plans, ring any one of the team at Gary Peer and Associates, because often we look at plans for people and go, look, the plans are great, but why don't you tweak this? Why don't you tweak that?
Yeah.
Because we know how houses resell and we know the buttons to press. Viewers, thanks for watching another episode of GPTV, where Gary wasn't here and he continues to sit in his Speedos by the pool, lathering on what was the old oil
Banana
that used to be? Pina colada. He's drinking a pina colada as we speak, whilst putting on oil, getting his suntan up, while you and I and the rest of the team do the heavy lifting. I'm Philip Kingston.
And I'm Leon Guzenfitter, and thanks for watching.